Debunk false claims by typical Indian. Claim. True. There was no India then. Debunk. While the concept of modern India as a unified nation state didn't exist, the Indian subcontinent has a long history of cultural, geographical, and historical connections that predate the modern nation of India. Claim. What there was Bharat. Debunk. Bharat is a term used in ancient texts, but it did not represent a unified nation state as we understand it today. It referred to a larger cultural and geographical region. Claim. Yes, there were hundreds of kingdoms and a few empires here at any given point of time. Debunk. This statement is accurate. The Indian subcontinent historically consisted of various kingdoms and empire. Claim. Some of the empire were very large. E.g. the Mauryan Empire, headquartered in Magadha, was larger than the present India. Debunk. The Mauryan Empire was indeed a vast empire, but its size relative to present-day India is a subject of historical debate. It is not universally accepted that it was larger than the entire modern nation. Claim. So, together they extended over a very vast land area, extending well into the Middle East and even parts of Europe in the west, and the Far East in the east. E.g. there are plenty of Sanskrit or other language Indian names to places and geographical features in Europe. The oldest and largest temple is in Cambodia at Namo Angkor Wat, is Sanskrit in etymology. Debunk. While there were connections and influences between the Indian subcontinent and other regions, claiming that these empires extended into parts of Europe and the Far East as a single entity is an oversimplification. Claim. Each of these kingdoms had separate names like Chera, Chola, Pandya, Maurya, etc. and called themselves Rajas. Debunk. This statement is accurate. These were indeed distinct kingdoms with their own identities. Claim. Each of them at the same time identified themselves with the larger entity called Bharatam, which they called Rashtra. Debunk. While they might have identified with the concept of Bharatam as a cultural and geographical entity, it wasn't a centralized nation state. Claim. There is an inexhaustible wealth of historical and literary works which endorse this fact. Debunk. Historical and literary works may reference the concept of Bharatam, but interpreting them as evidence of a unified nation state is subject to interpretation. Claim. Even today, more than 10 million manuscripts alone pertaining to a plethora of knowledge systems stand preserved in our archives. Debunk. The existence of a vast number of manuscripts is a testament to India's rich history, culture, and knowledge, but it doesn't establish the existence of a unified nation state in ancient times. Claim. Even in the Vedas, the oldest ever cluster of books on the earth available as of today, there are clear references to Rajas and the Rashtra called Bharatam. E.g., there is a wish expressed in them, may the many Rajas remain prosperous, and contribute to the prosperity and glory of their Rashtra called Bharatam. Debunk. The Vedas are ancient texts, and while they reference various regions and entities, they don't provide conclusive evidence of a unified nation state called Bharatam in the modern sense. Claim. Rajas were like today's states. The only difference was that they had autonomy, there being no centralized administrative authority. Debunk. While Rajas were similar to states in some ways, the concept of modern statehood and governance significantly differs from historical Rajas. Claim. The only difference between the Western and Eastern experience of nation is that the former is based on sameness, while the latter is based on diversity. Debunk. This oversimplifies the complex historical and cultural differences between Western and Eastern nations. Claim. The Western nation is a political entity, while Bharat was a cultural entity. Debunk. While culture played a significant role in the concept of Bharat, it is an oversimplification to reduce Western nations to merely political entities. Western nations also have deep cultural and historical roots. Claim. It is the same Bharat which redefined and reformatted itself into a political entity post-independence, demarcating its borders and boundaries politically and geographically. Debunk. India's political entity and borders were indeed redefined after independence, but the historical and cultural aspects of Bharat existed long before that. Claim. If you go through records left behind by foreigners who had been to this land not only as invaders, but also as visitors on various purposes, you can see that they have extensively used the name Bharat to refer to the place they visited. Debunk. While the term Bharat may have been used by foreigners, it doesn't necessarily establish the existence of a unified nation state. Claim. India is the British name for a Bharat. Hindustan is the Arabic name for the same Bharat. Debunk. India and Hindustan are names for the same geographical region, but they don't prove the existence of a single unified nation state in ancient times. Claim. Our nation is therefore Bharat historically, culturally, civilizationally, and politically today. Debunk. While Bharat has cultural and historical significance, it is not a synonym for the modern nation of India. India is a political entity with its own historical and cultural diversity. Claim. A cultural nation stands remodeled into a political nation, with our old and real name which we gave ourselves millennia upon millennia ago. Debunk. While cultural elements endure, the transition from a cultural entity to a modern political nation is a complex historical process that involves various factors beyond a name.